You wake up and you think about cooking, think about work, think about emails. Welcome to episode 5 of The Bear, Broken Down. Sydney's having a rough night. Sometimes it's like that, 3:35 in the morning, you can't go back to sleep. My wife's a pharmacist, can't say what drugs she's taken. Sydney's such a good character in the show, I'm happy that she gets a little bit of background story. I'm hoping the second season she will get even more. I know a lot of folks related to her, not just first-time managers. Living at home. It's more affordable. I think this is a funny Chicago scene because I'm almost positive this train station is very close to where the restaurant is. Another just funny location thing that I think they did for convenience, not actual accuracy.
For the new menu, thinking maybe a play on tongue-in-cheek.
Ox tongue?
Or braised beef, maybe short rib.
Kind of a strange,
risotto.
You're going to call it tongue-in-cheek, but it's going to be risotto and short rib. That's something that chefs have done a lot in the past, this idea of taking cuts of things or the way that cuts of beef are called, or even the way that a vegetable might be named, because all these purveyors and growers and producers, they have to run their own marketing too, and so they'll come up with a name of something like pork butt, right? Everybody knows that it's actually pork shoulder, and that's something that you can kind of play into a dish if you want. I think it's interesting. And again, correct, if this is going way over my head and I'm missing a beef short rib and risotto reference, obviously I've seen the rest of this show and this episode, so I know that she does make a risotto and short rib dish, but I'm curious as to where that piece came from. Another thing that is getting brought up here is this idea of we can't just make the food. We just have to think about how the business is responding to our food, how the customers are enjoying it. It's not just a case of we get to make what we think tastes good. If things are not getting ordered or customers aren't coming in at certain times of the day, things need to get tweaked. I remember the first time I got asked to create a lunch menu when we were only a dinner restaurant, and it was a conversation of we need to bring in more revenue. We want to have more covers on the weekends. We want to have our space have more butts in seats. It's always a conversation that gets brought up, and it's just like, oh my God, another thing sometimes can be the feeling. But, in this opportunity, it gives Sydney an opportunity to step up.
This book is wild.
Yo, you just get here?
Nah. Chefs, we got any non-iodized salt?
Yeah, in the walk-in. How we doing on cakes?
About to fire them up.
That
Hustle on that, all right?
I got you.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say this looks like the Noma Guide to Fermentation book. It's the orange cover and the little squiggly things on it that you can immediately tell that that's a book. And for a lot of folks, it was that, and then I think I have it somewhere in the background. No, it's on the bookshelf up here behind me. It's The Art of Fermentation. And that both of those books combined, for folks that didn't spend time in Scandinavia, for those who hadn't had experience with lacto-fermenting vegetables or making sauerkraut or kimchi or bread or any of these things that have immense flavor applications but don't get taught in traditional culinary school, and got immensely I'm going to call it exploited in the last, let's call it 5 to 6 years. I think that those books were immense and really powerful resources for the industry to kind of get up to speed on these techniques. And certain people played them way out, and certain people made things that weren't delicious, but it was definitely a trend that came and went. And so it's cool to see Marcus referencing that book.
To fire them up.
Please hustle on that, all right?
I got you.
Why? You could tell he's going to rip it. Why rip it? The blade is right there. This is a funny, just kind of obviously it's trying to be a reference to certain people. It's really easy to cut the tape, but certain people rip it. But normally that's in the context of you're pulling it off of a roll, and it's just too much effort to go grab your paring knife or go over and grab a scissors. The blade to cut the tape is literally a centimeter away, and he's actually able to do it faster by just pulling down on the piece of tape. He's having to bring his other hand in to rip the tape at this point in time. And so this is hilarious as a scene.
Scissors.
What?
One side looks like shit. Both sides look like shit.
It's on a dispenser.
Chef.
Oh, cutting the tape.
What was that?
Oh, no, I know what this is. Ah!
This is fucked. We need to close for lunch.
This is fine.
Tina, Sydney, Ibra, you guys with me in the kitchen. We're gonna go over that new menu still, okay? Marcus?
I would love to hear some stories in the comments of funny disaster days that you folks have run into, because this is a perfect example of, like, I walked in and I thought I was just going to be able to get right into prep, but I came in and the toilet exploded, and chef told me that I need to come out in the dining room, grab as many paper towels as I can, and start mopping up water. And that's just a funny example of restaurant life sometimes, because there isn't someone that's on staff all the time that's able to do maintenance. They need to call FAC up to be able to do maintenance for them and fix the toilet. And he's a contractor. It's not someone who's always there. And clearly everybody has a bunch of different things that they need to be doing on the day-to-day. So this is just a funny scene.
Just lock this shit down, get it dried off. FAC's bringing a shop vac, okay?
Fac's mouth is a shop vac.
Okay, so see those shallots, the garlic starting to caramelize.
Nice, so we're gonna add.
It's not,
a little
but
bit
that's
of
okay.
capers. Gonna cook that.
The new components caught me.
I know, just hear me out. We gotta get a new dinner menu. We can hire more cooks. We get more help around here. Okay,
We're gonna add a little bit of white wine. Let that reduce.
Okay, there's a couple
And then you
pieces
got
that are caramelized,
hot
but
stock. Let
those
that
are
deglaze
sweated,
the bottom
maybe.
of the pan.
Okay, that's looking good. You can turn the heat off now, and we're going.
did he say deglaze?
And then you've got some hot stock. Let that deglaze the bottom of the pan.
Okay, there's no fond on the bottom of the pan, so deglazing is a little bit redundant in that situation because they were just sweated shallots and garlic.
That's looking good. You can turn the heat off now, and we're going to Monte, or we're going to whisk in about 2 tablespoons of.
So this is Carmen taking a French word, monter, or mount. To mount a sauce with butter is to take cold cubes of butter and just add it and emulsify it. So you have a little bit of wine, a little bit of stock in the bottom of something, and as you add butter and you continue to agitate it and to stir it, that butter will emulsify into the sauce, and it will be this rich, silky smooth, like a beurre blanc almost is like a great example of a sauce like this. But he looks at that and he says, oh, well, this doesn't make sense. And so to stop talking over people and to kind of come down is like he's learning that he needs to distill things down into easier to understand, or like reference points that people get.
You see it's starting to get kind of glossy. That's that sauce that's starting to happen.
Glossy
Do a
is
little bit
good.
of pepper, salt, squeeze of lemon,
Parsley.
This is common-ish, this idea of like having everybody stand around and have the chef show you how to do something. 9 times out of 10, the way that this happens is the chef will stand with the person who is responsible for this dish. It's not that everybody in the kitchen needs to be standing around and watching chef do this. If it's something like a new thing that every single person in the kitchen needs to be responsible for, or if something royally gets screwed up and chefs needs to give a demo to everybody, this will happen. But if this is coming off of one person's station, not everybody will always stand around and watch this happen. But this could be just a morale booster because Carmen knows that everybody respects him as a source of technique in the kitchen, and so it's valuable for them to see it. But again, just trying to break it down and provide some accuracy that not every single time a new dish hits the menu, the entire kitchen stops and has to watch chef make it and take these notes. If you're enjoying this so far, I would really appreciate a like on this video. It does a little fun confetti thing when you hit it, and also subscribing to this channel makes sure that the YouTube algorithm knows that more folks want to see content like this. It helps me continue to produce content like this for you folks, and I would just really appreciate a gentle tap of that button. Let's get back to it.
Yo, is this warm enough?
Think so.
Yo, check this shit.
What's up?
Take a whiff.
Oh my god. Yo, should we do a bakery?
I just finished the instructions.
The lengths that chefs and pastry chefs, somms, like the lengths that bar managers, the lengths that some of these techniques will make people go to, whether it's like the early days of sous vide when all of us didn't exactly have a HACCP plan for how we were going to make this new protein cookery technique work. And same with fermentation stuff, like the lack of systems in order to make these flavors happen is just funny. And it's just like, it proliferated the industry. Everybody was doing weird science experiments, but you know, you had to jerry rig it because nobody was making it in a productized way, in the way that like sous vide eventually became like a staple in people's houses. And the same thing with fermentation. You just need to create this like high humidity, kept at a specific temperature, anaerobic versus aerobic environment for certain things. And everybody just jerry rigged their own setup.
There are 2 ways to go about lacto fermentation. Facts. You can ferment the raw product in either vacuum-sealed plastic bag or...
Yo, Carmen.
Yo.
Can I borrow a sous vide bag, chef?
So the reason he asked for a vacuum sealed bag is because sometimes they're expensive. Like depending on the quality and the size and where you're getting them from and how many you bought, it kind of influences the price of the bag. Certain bags can be like 60 cents, 90 cents, $1.50, like $3 a bag. It can be really, really expensive for high quality sous vide bags. And so that's why Marcus had to ask Carmen for one, because he probably keeps it in some sort of locker in the same way that like I've seen meat glue kept in chef's lockers. I've seen ISI canisters kept in chef's lockers. I've seen just all sorts of these funny, interesting food manipulators that are expensive that if just left on a shelf, they might get used and abused or even stolen by people, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's why he had to make that
Yo,
ask.
what time you home tonight? Should I save Bachelorette?
I'm gonna be late. Just watch it without me. But hey, don't ruin that shit again.
I didn't ruin shit. You asked me what happened.
Yeah, and you told me every detail.
The thing that's so funny about this scene that I'm noticing, the 20, we don't see exactly what size of this, but this up here is like 22 quarts of baking powder. And I'm just like, this is screaming to get consolidated into like a 4-quart or an 8-quart Cambro, or even just a bunch of delis. Like, why in the world do you have a 22-quart Cambro just reserved for this baking powder where you're using a teaspoon, a tablespoon, like 50 grams max at a time? It's just funny to me that you see this sitting up here and it's labeled baking powder.
Tell the whole episode.
Then don't ask me what happened.
Marcus, we good on cake, chef?
This is a funny juxtaposition because it's two people with different experience levels working on two different projects. So Marcus, the pastry chef, is trying to figure out fermentation. He's immensely inspired by the Noma's Guide to Fermentation. He spends all this time perfecting this little metro rack setup, or this little speed rack setup, with the plastic wrap and the duct tape and the jars and the fruit going inside of it and getting the temperature just right. Carmen's asking him all day what's going on with these cakes. And he keeps saying, I trust you, you're going to get these cakes done. And this is, kind of a testament. And unfortunately, it's a look into, if you don't have your priorities straight, if you aren't able to get all of your other stuff done, then pursuing other things that aren't on the menu or are creatively just stimulating for you can sometimes be a detriment, because the customers aren't coming in for your fermentation projects. The customers are coming in for your chocolate cakes. And so Sydney kind of approaches it the opposite way. She kind of makes sure that she gets all of her stuff done, her sous chef responsibilities, and then she works on her risotto stuff. And so that's an interesting dichotomy that's happening in this scene. And he's rushing, and it's dirty, and the scaling is wrong. And this often happens when you're making a mess and you're going too fast. If he was actually just going normal speed, he wouldn't have to take the extra time to wipe up the cocoa powder and the flour that dropped on the ground and all that stuff. But because he feels rushed, this is like not total station domination. This is like the opposite. This is you're getting caught up in the chaos and not taking a second to slow down and go smooth, and it's going to bite him in the butt. You can just tell.
You know what? Actually, change your plans. We're gonna take everything. Just take it outside. All right, take it outside.
Do what with it? You're a real stud, Petey.
Thanks, cousin.
I ain't your cousin.
My cousin either.
Hey, everyone.
Dum.
So the reason this is so important for them to do, and the reason that you wouldn't just leave stuff in the walk-in, is because there's something that all of us learn about when we take our food certification exam called the temperature danger zone. And this is above 41 and below 141. And so and this is in Fahrenheit. So anytime that food is kept within that range, and this is like uncooked proteins like dairy, things that can spoil, raw fish, shellfish. And for Carmen, you can see him kind of shoveling all of this protein out of the walk-in, because walk-ins for the most part are kept somewhere. And you can think about the temperature that's just below 41. That's 32. That's where water freezes. And so most walk-in fridges, low boys, just fridges in general, are kept somewhere between that like 33 degrees and 41 degrees. And so the second that the walk-in goes out, it's only a matter of time before, because the fridge condenser's off, it's going to prevent that cooling from going into the fridge, and the temperature is going to rise, and then the second that food goes into what we refer to as that temperature danger zone, bacteria can start to grow and multiply. And so they're freaking out because they need to get all of the protein out because they don't know when the fridge is going to be coming back on. And so they're transporting it in things like coolers. And this is completely anecdotal, right? Like, we don't know exactly the point in that piece of meat when the bacteria is going to get to a point when it's going to be harmful for you. But the guidelines that us chef people operate under is 2 hours inside the temperature danger zone. After that, it's unsafe to eat. And so that's why they're trying to move so fast, and that's why it's like, well, the walk-in's insulated. Why wouldn't you just leave it in there? That can work, but if you don't know exactly when your walk-in's going to get fixed, the temperature rises, and that's just not good.
Ibra, get all the beef, put it in gravy, cover it, warm it up for service.
Yes, chef.
Tina, switch to potato prep. Manny, you and I are going to take all the vegetables that don't fit in the low boy, all the chicken, put them in the pots, cover them, stock it all, okay?
So a lot of people might be understanding the power's out. How in the world are they going to get things hot for service? It's because the gas still works. And so this is just Sydney thinking.
Something like that.
You can still have hot stuff. Okay, guess the gas doesn't work.
Across the street?
Very dangerous.
Dopeness. I mean, it looks super scrappy, but it's incredibly fun to cook over a setup like this. Cooking over rusted, you know, obviously they're not putting food on those rusted pieces of metal,
Gas
but
line is still down, power's out, so outdoor lunch service.
This weird thing happens too. You have this minute where you're watching the fire and you're thinking, if I don't do anything, this place will burn down and all my anxiety will go away with it.
And then you put the fire out.
Then you put the fire out.
this is a dope scene. Because just a couple points, like I think a lot of people resonated with this idea of like, if the restaurant burns down, I won't have anything else to keep me anxious. And it sucks that is the reality for a lot of folks. And it makes me sad that is what goes through people's minds sometimes. And this rings true with a lot of places that I've worked at. But also the point that Marcus makes on, I won't make a mistake again. Like this very apologetic, like, I'm sorry that this happened. I screwed something up. And Karma's advice is so packed with wisdom. Yes, you will. Of course you'll make a mistake again. It's not about not making mistakes. It's about being able to make a mistake, acknowledge why it happened. I've said this in videos before, but it's like you either win or you learn. And so that I think is like a positive shift in screwing up sometimes and making mistakes and going out of your comfort zone and trying new things and experiencing different techniques and environments and all of that stuff. And so I like this scene a lot.
Yeah.
My credit got destroyed. I mean, my whole shit got rocked. There's not a night I don't stay up just thinking about what I could have done different.
Wild scene. This is, I don't know, for someone who's made this entire transition, this scene also hits me really hard. Just this idea that you would want to get away from having to work for someone and do their own food. And I think I've told this multiple times. I wish sometimes that when I was at the peak of running the event production company that I co-founded in 2018, when we were doing all of the events and catering private parties and doing these crazy dinners, there were times in that life where I would wish that I could go back and just be a line cook. And then there were times while I was a line cook where I just wish I could go back to being a culinary school student. And then there was times when I was a culinary school student where I just wish that I could have gone back to being the little prep cook that I was at the World Bistro that my first job was. And I think not enough people think about that, where you think that, oh, well, if I could just exit this position and move on to this other thing, it's all going to be puppies and rainbows. And it's not. And Sydney talks about it in a very transparent way that I don't know if it hit people the way that it hit me, because again, I've been full circle on this whole thing. But working for yourself, as sexy as it sounds, is incredibly hard, because not only do you have the thing, whatever your product is, your food, your sandwiches, your wine, your cider, your ice cream, your cookies, whatever it is, you have to worry about that, which you already kind of do in your line cook job or your chef de partie job. But then when you own the thing, you have to think about the things she's referencing. Do I have enough liquidity to think about a brick and mortar? Is my insurance up to date? Do all of my employees have their food sanitation cards on file? And it's just an interesting, I'm glad that this scene exists. I just wanted to call it out because it resonated with me. And the reason that this scene coming after the scene before it is so important is Carmen wasn't there when Sydney jumped into action to set up that outdoor heating all over fire and cinder blocks and rusted pieces of metal to be open for service so that they could still make money on that day. Her grit and entrepreneurship savvy of this really sucks, this is not up to par, but we have to make this work, is something that people who go off and do their own thing and then they come back to an organization, that's actually really powerful. And so I would look for that sometimes as we were hiring people, is do you have experience going off and doing your own thing? Because then you have a little bit of empathy and an additional level of scrappiness that the person who's just always been an employee sometimes doesn't have. And so
yeah, of course.
I like this scene a lot. We talk about this in Total Station Nomination. I'm pretty sure he's making kits. I hope he's making kits. So little recipe kits, so batches are individually built out. This is also in the 5-day kitchen productivity challenge, and I teach that start to finish. If you want to check that out, it's down low in the description of every single recap of the bear. So it's 5 days. I think it's almost 40 minutes of content from me, and the goal is to help you be more productive in the kitchen. So if you want to check that out, it's free. Again, it's down low in the description. It's so interesting that Sydney's dreams and Carmen's dreams are different. This has been episode 5 of The Bear. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see the rest of the season, because episode 6 should be uploading very soon. My name is Justin Khanna. I hope you folks have a good one.